If saving money doesn't make you feel safe anymore, then the problem isn't discipline, and it isn't motivation. The real problem is that most people are still trying to protect themselves using a definition of safety that no longer works. For a long time, safety was simple. You built a buffer. You avoided risk. You waited. And that buffer gave you peace, because the world moved slowly enough for that strategy to hold. Careers lasted decades. Industries changed gradually. Skills remained relevant long enough for stability to feel predictable. You could plan 10 years ahead and reasonably expect the system to look similar when you arrived. But that environment is gone. Today, industries pivot overnight. Technology replaces roles quietly, and opportunities expire faster than most people notice, which means the old definition of safety quietly stopped working, but no one updated the advice. So people save more, cut more, optimize more, and still feel exposed, because deep down, they sense something isn't aligned. But today, safety doesn't come from standing still. It comes from being able to move. That's the part most advice never explains. We still talk about safety as if it's a place you arrive at, a number in an account, a milestone you hit, a moment where you can finally relax. But real safety now isn't a place. It's a capability. It's not about how much money you have. It's about how many options you have when things change. Because things will change. And when they do, speed matters more than size. The people who feel the least anxious today aren't always the ones with the most saved. They're the ones who know they can adapt if something breaks. They know they can earn in more than one way. They know they can learn fast. They know they're not trapped. They don't rely on hope. They rely on flexibility. That feeling, that quiet confidence, doesn't come from a balance. It comes from systems, from designing a life that doesn't collapse when one piece shifts. So let's talk about what actually creates safety now, not in theory, not in an ideal world, but in the one we're actually living in. The first pillar is optionality. Optionality means having more than one viable path forward. It means your life doesn't collapse if one thing stops working. If you lose a job and everything falls apart, that's not a money problem, that's an options problem. Safety today comes from being able to pivot, from knowing you're not dependent on a single fragile setup. That doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean doing 10 things at once. It means slowly building alternatives while things are still stable, so when change comes, you're choosing, not panicking. The second pillar is skill leverage. Money is static. Skills compound. A savings account protects you from small shocks. Skills protect you from long-term irrelevance. The most valuable skills today aren't trendy or technical. They're transferable. The ability to learn quickly, to communicate clearly, to understand systems, to solve real problems for real people. These skills travel with you, across jobs, across industries, across economic cycles. That's why two people with the same savings can feel completely different levels of security. One feels fragile, the other feels capable. The difference isn't money, it's leverage. The third pillar is social capital. This part makes people uncomfortable because we like to believe independence means doing everything alone. But no one is secure alone. The people who recover fastest from setbacks almost always have something in common. They're connected. Not loud, not famous, connected. They know people who share information, who open doors, who show them angles they wouldn't see on their own. This isn't about manipulation or transactional networking. It's about reputation, being useful, being consistent, being remembered for competence. Social capital builds quietly, conversation by conversation, favor by favor, year by year. And when something breaks, it activates, not because you asked for rescue, but because you invested before you needed it. The fourth pillar is information advantage. Not secret knowledge, not predictions, just attention. The ability to notice patterns before they become obvious, to see shifts before they become headlines, to question stability before it disappears. Most people react late because they wait for clarity. They wait for certainty. They wait for consensus. But safety in a fast world belongs to those who adjust early, not perfectly, just earlier. When you combine these four pillars, optionality, skills, social capital, information, you create something deeper than savings. You create resilience. Resilience doesn't mean nothing bad happens. It means when it does, you are not erased. You don't collapse internally. You respond. You adapt. You reposition. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can have money and still feel fragile, because fragility isn't about numbers. It's about dependence. If your stability depends on one income, one system, one platform, one employer, then anxiety never truly leaves. It waits, because something always shifts. And when it does, size doesn't matter as much as speed. The people who feel calm aren't always the richest. They're the most flexible. They've reduced dependency. They've increased agency. Agency is power. The power to respond without panic, to move without asking permission, to adapt without losing identity. Instead of fearing volatility, they prepare for it. Instead of resisting change, they train for it. Because fear is often the result of surprise, not difficulty. When you expect instability, you design for movement. You build breathing room, not just barriers. Barriers crack. Breathing room absorbs pressure. And over time, this changes how you experience the world. Uncertainty stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like terrain. The goal is no longer perfect protection. It's sustainable adaptability. Not eliminating risk, but surviving change with dignity. The future will not slow down. It will not stabilize. It will not ask permission. So the strategy shifts from hoarding to positioning, from control to capability, from fear to flexibility. And once you feel that shift, saving money no longer feels pointless. It becomes supportive, not the foundation, but reinforcement, a tool, not a shield. And that quiet knowledge that whatever happens next, you have options, that is the new definition of safety. Not certainty, not guarantees, but strength that moves.
And that changes everything.